So I'm working through the questions in the workbook for paper 2 on programming.
This is one of those questions which are very typical for question 4 or 5 in the exam, where you come in and there is no code at all to help you. And it's the one where you can easily be inclined to panic. So you know the structure, you've got your inputs to start with, then you've got your variables, then your definitions, but there are no definitions. They've not given you any bit for definitions, so they don't want any definitions. And then you've got your main program. Now, if you're faced with this sort of question where it says, here's a flow chart, do it and don't add any functionality, what you need to do is just go through and build that structure. So the diamonds are always an if, the loops are always a for or a while loop, and then the diagonals and the sets tend to be either doing something or printing something or doing an input. So that's the kind of basic structure to what you're about to make. Now it says use meaningful names. I will use some, but obviously you don't need to have exactly the same names as me because it doesn't tell you what names to use. The only reason that will ever be a problem is if you change it in the program itself. And it says use meaningful identifiers and add comments. So we need to make sure we put the odd comment in there as well. So the first thing it wants us to do is to generate a random number between 1 and 100, and it begins by saying import a library. Now, if you weren't sure what to do here, you'd look in the coding booklet, but I suspect most of you know that you can do import random. And that brings in the random ability to make random numbers, and that's what it means, I think, by saying import library. It then says set user input to an empty string. Now that for me would go in the variables bit. And I want to say that user input equals an empty string. Of course, I can't put a space in there. I could underscore, I could capital the I. Yeah, but user input is an empty string. And set a number to 0. So there I'm just going to say number equals 0. And it's not said 0.0, so I've not done 0.0. Now, it then is wrapped in a loop about press Q to quit. Now, this is obviously my main code at this stage. So a loop that's going to have press Q to quit is a while loop. A for loop would be doing it 10 times. A while loop's one where it's going to be doing a test. Now, I suspect it's going to be test my user input is a Q. Now, I could do Q or Q and do an uppercase or lowercase, and I could do while it's the same as Q, because it's never going to run it then because it's blank to start with. So I'm going to say, well, it's not the same as Q, so that it runs it certainly the first time. Yeah, if you'd set that to Q there, it would go in the first time, but we've been explicitly told to set it to an empty string. So if it is the same as Q, it just wants us to stop. So we don't have to do anything after the while loop. And then the first thing it wants us to do inside the loop is set number to a random number between 1 and 100. Now again here, I would tend to look in your coding book. And in your coding book, as you look through your coding book thinking, how will I ever remember these random numbers? On page 13, it tells you this is how to bring in the random library, and this is how to create a random number between two numbers. And so I can see there the command that they're suggesting in the booklet is whatever your variable is called, and mine's called number. Yeah, we'd set that earlier on in that previous line. Number is, now I'm using the text in the book, random.randint, and then it says bracket between A and B. So I'm going to say bracket, and my A is 100, and my A is 1 and my B is 100. So set a number between 1 and 100. Now, conscious of the fact I need to put comments in this, I would put there, this makes a random number between 1 and 100. Just so that I've, in effect, flagged up what that does. Then we get to an if statement. It's a diamond, so I know it's an if statement. And the question is the number modulus 2 equal to 0? Now, you might panic at this point and think, what on earth does that mean? Well, in the booklet again, if I was looking through the booklet, I can see that the sign for modulus on page 6 is the percentage sign. Now, some of you will know that, in effect, modulus gives you a remainder. So it's checking, is the remainder equal to 0? Is the modulus 2 equal to 0? Is it even or odd? So now I'm going to do if number, now the sign for modulus was percentage, modulus 2, the same as 0. So is number modulus 2 the same as 0? Now, if it is, the yes condition, I want to say the number is even. So that's just print number is even. There I've made it so that the number comes in rather than just write the number, and it would say the number is even without giving it you. There it will tell me the number it's picked. Now, the other no, now there is no other option here, so I don't need to do an elif. I can just do a straightforward else, a final command. So print number is odd. And then that gives me that final one. And then now I need to give it the option, press Q to quit and get the user input. So here I want to go user input equals an input that says press Q to quit or any other key to continue. Now, once I've done that, I could also do user input equals user input dot upper. And if I did that, it just gives it the chance to make sure it's running in uppercase. And so it works with my capital Q that I put in there. And it saves me having to put in or user input is small case q. And it saves that an extra little bit of code here at the top. I don't think they've made a fuss about capital letters. And so if you'd missed off that bottom line, I don't think it would have been a